Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Jason. Yeah, I'd probably be quicker if I had a parachute again, I think.
I know, but, you are such a big name of music, and we are honoured to have you here at 101 FM. I've followed your career for decades, and I started the show with some stylists. We'll play a bit more in a minute. I know that you've been travelling a bit, haven't you? You've been interstate.
Yes, yeah, I do. I don't do a lot of work in Brisbane or the surrounding areas. Unfortunately, I'd like to. It just doesn't seem to be the type of venues, I suppose, that I like to work and perform. And also I have a much larger fan base in Melbourne, where I spent most of my life. So it's very easy for me to book a month in Melbourne and go down and have sold-out shows. Yeah,
that's what I heard. Our mutual friend Peter Brewer, who has been on this show before, talking about his book, a great guy in real estate field. He said, Peter Cupples, when he goes to Melbourne, he's a big star, but here in Brisbane, southeast Queensland, people don't know him as well. Why do you think that's the fact that you are so well known in the southern states compared to here?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we didn't spend enough time here over the years when I had stylists and also the Peter Cupples band. And then perhaps even after that finished, maybe I should have, there was probably, 2 decades where I really didn't do any work in Brisbane. So I perhaps should have continued at least trying to, come up this way and show my face. But, yeah, it just didn't happen. So, but it's a nice place to live.
It is. And why did you end up here?
It's good that nobody sort of really knows me, so I never get hassles.
It's good and bad, I guess. So, why did you choose southeast Queensland?
Well, my wife wanted to move back to Brisbane, so I just followed her.
Right, okay. And, of course, it all began for you when you were 12 years old, I think, was when your career began. Talk about those early days.
Yes, well, I grew up in a musical family, even though we grew up in a shack in the bush, but it was the Irish influence. My father had a family band with his father, so my grandfather played fiddle, grandma played piano, Uncle Gordy played the accordion, Dad played mandolin, saw and spoons, and they would obviously play at local sort of halls and dances and whatever. By the time I was born, I was the last in a litter. So,
what number were you?
8 or 9.
I lost count.
Yeah.
8 is enough.
I need another hand. So I grew up, and my grandparents were long gone by then, and my mother had inherited my grandmother's piano and taught herself to play. She may have had lessons when she was a kid, I don't know, but anyways, as I grew up, I remember her playing the piano, Dad playing the mandolin, saw and spoons, and having parties at our place in the bush, a little shack that he built up there. But there was always instruments lying around. There was guitars and there was this and that. There was an old dobro, I remember. I don't know who ever played that. There was a flute, there was violins, there was all sorts of things. So I just gravitated towards it. And the whole family was always just self-taught. You pick up a few things here and there. Somebody shows you a chord and maybe another one, and then you work out something else. And so I've always really played, and even writing songs. It's always been basically what I hear inside my head, basically. So I hear music, and the same with lyrics. Lyrics sort of filter in that way as well. When I'm in the zone.
Yeah, the zone. That's what they talk about. Graham Goebel I had on my show recently. He talked about that zone of when he wrote Reminiscing in 30 minutes, Yeah, it just he channeled something.
Yeah, no, it is. The good songs really just fall out of you. And you really feel guilty for taking responsibility for it because you don't deserve it. You should be slaving over a great song for months, but it's not the way.
Well, fast forward to the 1970s, and a band called Stylists made a lot of noise, and we've already played a couple of songs from that period. We're going to play a song called Work Out Fine from 1978. Just give us a bit of an intro for this song. Of course, you were the lead singer of Stylists, and I guess a band that, you were the blue-eyed soul singer of this band.
Yes, yeah. Well, and this was kind of a bit of a diversion from the actual soul sound that Stylists had, and we thought, Australian music and Australian bands are basically rock bands. There was no soul band. I think there was Renee Gayer, us, the Hot City Bump Band, and that was about it. Australia-wide.
And then the Dynamic Hypnotics, but that was in the 80s.
Yes, that was the 80s. That's another decade entirely.
Exactly.
But yeah, so we thought, well, we might be able to capture a bit more of the Australian market if we, go a bit rockier. And Ronnie, our guitar player, who was originally from Liverpool and grew up in Adelaide, another Adelaidean, he'd written this song called Work Out Fine. And so we thought, well, let's have a go at it. So we had a crack at it, and this was the result.
Peter Cupples, our guest for the final hour of our show. Peter, that song, I tell you what, I kind of vaguely remember it, but listening to it back now, I reckon Stylists were ahead of their time.
Yeah, well, a lot of people said that, and we were certainly trying to carve new ground, we love soul music and all that sort of stuff. And I guess that, ended up recording for Motown was really the pinnacle of that. It was a great honour to to finally be signed to Motown as the first All-Australian white band. Although the marriage wasn't that great, there were a lot of people in Motown that didn't want to have an all-white band, and I can understand that. It was still a great honour to be on the same label of my heroes, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, all those. So,
well, you have collaborated with so many big names over the years, and coming up shortly, we'll talk about your collaboration with the late and great John English, who died a decade ago. Can't believe it. And also your collaboration with a certain Marty Roan, and of course, I saw you, Marty, and Johnson Peters and everybody else at the Rock Proms a couple of years ago. I supported Marty on that. But we've got some medical news about Marty. He hasn't been that well, so we're going to give him a call, Pete. What do you reckon?
Okay.
We'll give Marty a call, see how he's doing.
Love to talk to him.
And we'll talk more about what Peter's been up to here on 101 FM's Thursday morning show. Marty Roan is a good mate of Peter Cupples. Of course, they did the Rock Proms together that came to QPAC a couple of years ago. And I've got a great surprise for the audience, because we're going to be joined by Marty Roan, who is recovering from a major operation. Marty, welcome back to 101 FM. And, mate, bring us up to date with your health.
Well, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on. And hi, Pete. It's great to talk to you again.
You too, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm getting there. I came out of hospital yesterday, late yesterday afternoon, so I'm back home, I'm pleased to say. But I wouldn't want to go through this again. It was like being hit by a Mack truck. I had open heart surgery.
Wow. Oh, my God.
The operation took 7 hours, and it's the same condition that caused the death of John English.
That's right. Yes, the aneurysm, was it?
Yeah, when John had a fall, you might recall he had a fall. And
I was there.
when they were checking out his ribs, they found that. Now, I was interested. You might know more than I do. I was interested to read that it was when they, I guess, opened him up or checked out his ribs that they found this aneurysm. Now, normally, if you've already had an aneurysm, that's curtain. That's good night. So all I can think of is that his aorta had sprung a leak. That's the only thing I can think of, and it was apparently during the operation to save his life that sadly he passed away.
Yes, that is correct, Marty. He actually had two aneurysms. They discovered a 9-centimetre one initially, and then when they opened him up, they discovered an 11-centimetre one. And I think that was the problem. They couldn't clamp them. Yeah, that is serious. And it was partly due to this because I've been having yearly health checks that you tend to do when you get to our age. Yes.
And they picked up on this problem about 3 years ago. They said, we're concerned about your dilating aorta. I said, what does that all mean in layman's terms? He said, well, the aorta is the vein, the large vein, that carries the blood to the whole of the body, pretty much.
That's correct.
And if you have an aneurysm of the aorta, it's good night. And so anyway, they monitored it for the last 2 years, and in August of last year, the chief surgeon who conducts this operation here locally at the hospital said, I think we've got to do something. He said, because you're a walking time bomb.
Right.
He said, the circumference of your aorta is 5. The safety limit is 4. so you're a centimetre above what it should be. So I made the decision, guys. I made the decision that rather than walk around like a time bomb for the rest of my life, waiting and hoping that nothing would happen, that I'd bite the bullet. But I got to say, guys, I wouldn't wish this on anybody.
Absolutely.
It was like a real kick in the guts. It's a tough operation. I was actually in the ICU for 3 days after the op.
Wow, Marty, because I knowing you're one of the fittest older guys that I know. You know, you get up on stage, you can do a show for 2-3 hours, no problem at all. You know, you're not carrying any weight, you keep yourself fit, but something like this must be quite confronting. You know, what have the doctors told you?
Well, it was confronting because, as you said, Jason, I always regarded myself as extremely fit. But this is a lesson to everybody. What's going on under your skin is not necessarily what you think is going on. And it was just purely and simply through a checkup that came out of COVID. After after COVID had finished, I thought I'll just go and have a health check. And this is when they picked up on my dilating aorta, which was growing every time I had it measured. It was growing in size, and the doctor said, "All right, you've got a choice. You can play Russian roulette and hope that it never bursts, or you can do something about it now." I chose to do something about it now.
How long before we see you back, you think, performing? Or you haven't retired, have you, mate?
No, I hope not to. I hope not to. Still got a lot to do. Like you, Pete, I enjoy very much what I do. No, mate, it'll be at least 3 months before I'm back on my feet properly.
Yeah, you actually sound quite weak at the moment, Marty, so it must have been a hell of a ride for you.
It was, mate, and I tell you what, it's a bit of an eye opener. Marty Roan on a walker.
Oh well, mate, we have so much love and respect for you, and we look back on your career and the decades, just like Peter. You know, you've been around for so long, and doing the rock proms in recent years shows that you've still got it. So we're sending you lots of love on behalf of the 101 FM audience, and we really appreciate you taking time out to speak to us because we've been thinking about you.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Great to talk to you again, Peter.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed our tour of rock proms, and hope to get to work with you again sometime.
Yeah, me too, mate. It was absolutely fabulous time. Just thoroughly enjoyed it, and the way you ran the show was absolutely first class.
Thank you, Marty. Thanks very much to Marty Roan,
Cheers, mate.
Who's recovering from open heart surgery. Peter Cupples, our guest. We've just spoken to our mutual friend Marty Roan, and that's someone that I didn't know but admired, singing about John English, Peter. And we're going to talk about, your collaboration with him that lasted a couple of decades, but the inspiration behind that song, you were, obviously sad about your friend passing away.
Oh, devastated. I was absolutely devastated. I got the call early in the morning, and I just couldn't believe it because I'd spoke to him the night before, and he said, "Oh, Captain," call me Captain, right. Call him King, and his rough voice, he'd go, "Oh, Captain, I'll be right. I'll see you tomorrow. We're back on the road next week." And I said, yeah, no worries, mate. That'll be fantastic. And then I get the call in the morning, and then after I was told, probably about 15 minutes, half an hour later, I'm trying to digest it, and it was almost impossible. I got a call from a radio station in Sydney who wanted to interview me, so I wasn't really up for the interview, but I did it. And then a friend of mine who's on radio here in Brisbane asked me if I would, so I did for her. And then I said to Deanna, my wife, that I want to get away. I don't want this phone calling. So we packed the truck. We go camping a lot. We went to Double Island Point, where no radio reception there.
Off grid. Went
off grid for 3 days just to kind of get my head around what had actually happened. We were celebrating 20 years of Uncorked to become Unscrewed, and then became Unhinged in the end. We'd just been in Adelaide doing the Fringe Festival. The last 2 shows John ever did were with me. In fact, the last 2 weeks he was with me. We did shows in Melbourne and Victoria as well. He'd had a fall the night before the last show. and he was in a fair bit of pain that day, but he would never show it. And we ended up doing the gig, and then we find out later that he did the show with 4 broken ribs and a punctured lung.
Wow.
And I can't imagine what agonising pain he was in flying home with the pressurisation. It would have been incredible. But as I've always said, since I've known John, it'd be the loneliest job in the world being his understudy, because you'd never get on stage. Never. It started back in New Zealand. I was asked to play Frederick in the Pirates of Penzance. Simon Gallagher, who's a very good friend of both John and mine, he called me and said, look, I don't want to go to New Zealand and do Frederick. I want you to do it. And I said, well, but I've never done theatre. He said, that doesn't matter. Yeah, I've seen you dance around with Humphrey on stage at Carols by Candlelight. So at least I know you can act a little bit, and you certainly sing the part. So I did that, and I went rehearsals, and we went to New Zealand, and we toured there for must have been about 3 months. We toured that, and John and I got a bit sick of Gilbert and Sullivan. We both had our guitars there, and we decided that we would put on a show for the cast and crew on our night off. And so anyway, got it organised. We were in Auckland at the time, and so we had this private room there for the cast and crew, and John and I got up and we did this thing, and I played along with his songs and he played along with mine, and we had a bit of banter going, and we're kind of taking the mickey out of each other and ourselves, and we thought, and at the end of it, John goes, oh, this is good, Captain. We're going to do this when we get back to Australia. And he said, we'll only do wineries, uncorked, so we've got to do wineries, yeah. And so we started out. We did a winery. A friend of mine was running Marilla Estate at the time, so we went down there, and they got this beautiful grassy knoll up the top and overlooking the Derwent River. And so we went down there, and we did this Sunday afternoon, and you could buy a picnic basket and a bottle of wine, and antipasta and all that sort of stuff, and that was great. And then because we sort of, there weren't enough wineries for us to do, he said, well, we'll just do places that sell wine. So that pretty much meant anywhere. So we did it, and we would constantly develop the show. It just kept changing, New ideas would come in. We'd interrupt each other doing things and that were funny. So, and then there'd be a new bit of banter that'd go on. So it was kind of half scripted and half unscripted. Right. We knew sort of what songs we were going to do, and we had little intros for them and things, but that kind of changed. And things just kept changing all the time, and that was the beauty of it. Right. The fact of the matter that, it was always fresh. It wasn't sequenced or anything. We just played the guitars, and we'd do a bit of this and do a bit of that, and we'd go talking about this and that and the other. And it was just it was a beautiful marriage for a long time, the uncorked thing. John, we'd do interviews, and people couldn't get their head around the fact that Peter Cupples and John English, poles apart, you got the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, sweet singing, soul singer, and then you got this rough rock and roller, the dark eyes, but he'd go into interview, and they'd say, John, we find this really, how does this work? He goes, it's a bit like Derek and Clive with a bit of music.
We're coming up to the midday news, so we're going to probably take this to the news. But Peter, how can people reach out to you? Because we have to bring you back. We've got so much to talk about. We haven't even talked about your Stevie Wonder show and all the stuff you've done. How can people reach out to you? Well,
I'm basically just on the social medias like Instagram, Facebook. Most of the stuff's done through that now. It's websites are kind of like people don't tend to go to websites much anymore. They want instant sort of things. So that's how you can find out what I'm doing. There's a music site, because the personal site got full pretty quick. But there's a music site, Peter Cupples Music. And you can just go on there and have a look. And yes, I'll come back and I'll be recording a live Stevie Wonder album in a couple of weeks. So I'll bring it in when I get back.
Peter, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Let's get to the latest news with John English and Peter Cupples. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Jason.